well, peace, love, and purity in your life. I hope things are happening for you in the ways that you want to. It's a sunny day in London. I'm really happy that the sun's come out because I feel like this winter has just been quite long and quite grueling. This is the 22nd episode of Sanj Surati Talks, and I've got an amazing guest for you. She is a friend of my drummers, and they mentioned this lovely person, and I was like, wow, like I need to get her on the show. She's got a really interesting professional career, and she's a really wonderful personality. So I want to welcome to the stage the visibility coach, business mentor, and actor, Florence Andrews.
Hello, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me on.
No worries. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm happy the sun's out too because I feel it's been a never-ending winter. So I'm very happy today.
Awesome. So, Florence, there's going to be some people that are listening to this who don't know who you are. I'm sure there's loads of people that do know who you are, and I know why that is, and we're going to talk about that. But just give us a brief intro about who you are, where you're from, and what you're about.
Yeah, sure. So, I went to school with James and Taryn, grew up in Surrey, and I'm a mum of two. I live in East Sussex now, and most of my career has been in theatre. So I worked for over a decade in the West End mostly, and have done some film and TV work as well. And then when COVID happened, well, actually, I mean, I won't go into too much detail now, but I had really bad stage fright for a while as an actor, and it was getting over that stage fright and doing the work to really work through that helped me move from understudy to leading lady in my acting career. Right. And so for a long time, when people ever said, well, what would you do if you couldn't be an actor? I was like, I think I'd be a coach, because the work that helped me do that was so fascinating. And then cue COVID. And theatres closed. We were told don't come in tomorrow, but hopefully we'll be back in a couple of weeks. 2 years. This huge vacuum kind of opened up, and I was like, right, I've got to rethink and adapt. And that was when I decided to dive in with both feet, and I retrained and started my business, and now I do both. So that's me, really, a bit of two parallel lives going on.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's so wonderful to meet someone like you, because I do a lot of mentoring and coaching within my within the professional tech side of things that I do, but I'm also an actor as well, and also a creative. And it's just nice to meet someone who really kind of amplifies those sides of their personality, because a lot of people try to hide one of them. I was going to say, I think in the UK, like in the US, I feel like it's much more accepted and respected that you can be an actor and also an entrepreneur and have your own business and all these different strings to your bow. And I think for some reason in the UK, it's taken a while to catch up, and people feel like, oh, I'm not a serious actor if I also do something else. But I've definitely found that one complements the other in many ways. Absolutely. How did you get into acting?
So my family is all very actory and arty and musicians. We're a creative bunch. So I think I was lucky in that I never had one of those stories where, I had parents saying that's not realistic or you can't do that. There was always that open door, and I saw it around me. And my dad is an absolute film geek, and he really wanted to be an actor. He never really went into it. And he would show me all the MGM, like old Hollywood Technicolor MGM films when I was little, and we'd go to the cinema about once a week, and he'd show me French cinema. And so I just kind of grew up loving that medium. But I also loved singing and dancing and all of it. So that's kind of what led me into theatre. I actually trained as an opera singer for a bit first, and then realized, So I went to Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and often people think I studied there as an actor, but I actually started there as an opera singer. And there was then the year 3 drama students needed someone who could sing and act. And so I managed to get in for a term with them. I came out of my course and went to train with the actors in year 3 for a term. And I was like, this is where I need to be. So that kind of opened that door. And then I went and trained in musical theatre, and then was lucky enough to get a good agent. So, I mean, I never did I never did Amdram when I was little. I just did the school plays. I loved singing at school and acting in the school plays. And then, when I finished training, I was lucky enough to get a good agent. My first show was with Trevor Nunn, which was pretty cool.
Right.
And it just went from there, really. And I kind of did a mixture of mostly musicals, but I always felt like I was an actor who could sing rather than a singer who could act. So I managed to kind of, you know how it is, you get put in a box, but I managed to kind of sidestep a bit and do some straight theatre as well, and bits and pieces of TV. And then, had an amazing opportunity during lockdown as well that came out of the blue. So that's me, really, in a nutshell.
Amazing. And it's really interesting. You touched on something that I found with regards to the acting space, is that you do have to be very dynamic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of young actors I meet who they kind of pick their lane and go in that direction, but they start to get a bit frustrated with the brick walls that are put in front of them, because they don't have that dynamic quality about them.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've had to learn that quite quickly from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember I used to feel quite frustrated, because I think what actors can do is they decide how they should be cast. We've got this idea in our heads of this, we have those fantasies of playing certain roles or being seen in a certain way in that industry. And I realized after a while that I had to let go of that, because otherwise it does make you so bitter and jaded, because we can't control the casting process. We can't understand what's going on in their minds on the other side of the desk or of the screen. And so, I feel like play to your strengths. Don't try and be anyone else. Be who you are, and then let them decide where they see you. And I think that really brought quite a lot of liberation.
Amazing. Couple of things just with regards to you as an actor, like your processes. You touched on the fact that you suffer from stage fright. Now, I've seen some of your work online, and I cannot believe that you suffer from stage fright. Just talk to us about that and how you overcame that.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a thing for a while. And I look back now and see, I mean, it's not something I suffer with anymore. I get nervous like anyone when there's some big opportunity there, but it doesn't derail me like it used to. I think part of it was perfectionism. I think which really doesn't go well with acting. There was that fear of, if I go big and I fail or I fall on my face, that was too much to bear. Right. So, I seem to be especially bad when it was auditions. You put me on a stage in front of 2,000 people and I was kind of all right. You put me in a room with 3 people looking at me, like I would just fall to pieces. So I actually started seeing, once I realized that this was really, really holding me back and I needed to get a check on it if I wanted to succeed the way I wanted to. I actually found a performance psychologist there's this woman called Alma Thomas. She doesn't work anymore, but she was like a bronze athlete, Olympic athlete. And she started by being a performance psychologist for athletes. And then she moved into singing and acting and essentially helping people perform under pressure. So, I would find that I'd try and calm myself down and that wouldn't work. I'd still have all the adrenaline going around my body. And then I'd freak out because I'd be like, oh my God, I'm, still nervous. This is going to F up. And she taught me to really use adrenaline rather than try and avoid it, and kind of almost reframe those. So the difference in your body between fear and excitement is pretty much nil. Like it's the same physiological stuff going on, the racing heart, might be like dry mouth or shaky knees, whatever it is, butterflies. And she essentially taught me how to reframe that in my mind, because it's the story we attach to it. Like, oh no, this is bad. This means I'm not ready. They're going to be able to see I'm nervous. All of that to, I'm so excited to go in and perform this for these people. I'm so excited to be in a room full of creatives who get me and I get them. I'm so excited to have a big glass of wine afterwards and call my boyfriend and tell him I did it, and so little hacks like that really helped me to actually use adrenaline to my advantage. And it actually can really give you the edge if you just let it be there and know that it's normal. So that was a big turning point for me, for sure.
Amazing. So it's really interesting you say that, because I only got into professional acting over the last 5 years. And that's one thing I really enjoy. And maybe it's because I'm a lot older, is that you're thrown in a situation where you're working with creatives that no one gets to work with. And you, as you say, you should embrace that, because that's just a beautiful moment to connect and do something that no one gets to do. So it's great. I'm sure people listening to that will get so much value from that, because nerves can be, can be destructive. And you're right, you can't switch them off. You have to kind of use them to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of unrealistic to assume that we can be zen, especially if we want to grow, that means we're going to have to keep putting ourselves in situations we haven't been in before, which of course is going to be a little bit terrifying, but it gets to be exciting, terrifying, right? So absolutely. I think when you can find what works for you in that area and know that it's normal, and it's kind of also, I think a big part of it as well is being willing to fail forwards, like be willing to tell the crap joke, be willing to try it in a way that flops, because that's the only way you're going to find the things that do work.
Absolutely. So you've got a singing aspect to your to the way you are as an actor. I'm assuming, I didn't know that you were an opera singer. How do you protect your voice?
Well, I had to live quite a boring life for a while when I was really, when I was doing, 8 shows a week, and it was a role that had a lot of singing in it. I had friends who could really get away with like smoking, drinking, staying out late, and then they'd be like, oh, the next day. And I'd be really pissed off, like, screw you. I was never one of those people. I had to live like a nun a little bit. So for me, it was just those simple things: try and get enough sleep, hydration, ideally having some singing tutor so that you have a good warm up, warming down after you sing. Hydration and sleep, really, and not like shouting too much. So, the thing that would really screw my voice up would be if I did go out somewhere where there's loads of background noise and you're shouting into someone's ear just to have a conversation. So I just had to be really mindful of moderation with my lifestyle when I was doing those eight shows a week kind of jobs, because I do find a lot of those kind of West End show, year-long contracts, you're kind of committing to a bit of a lifestyle as well as the job itself. It is such a commitment in terms of the endurance that you need, really, and the resilience that you need throughout that.
Right. And just with regards to that hydration and that moment where you kind of focus on your rest, if you didn't monitor that, would you feel the effects of it on your voice? Yeah,
if it was just, if I was just doing a couple of shows a week, I could get away with not really focusing too much on any of that, to be honest. I think it's the fact that if you're asking your voice to do quite a lot, we would do 8 shows a week for a year, and we'd have like 28 days holiday over that year. So it would be that by Thursday I'm pushing, and it's not feeling comfortable. And then that's a bit of a cycle, because then by the Saturday show, you're then singing on a tired voice because you were pushing since Thursday, so it's a bit of a cyclical kind of effect. So I just had to be careful. Yeah.
Amazing. So let's talk about this fantastic opportunity that you had over the last 12 months. You played Jenny Gucci alongside Lady Gaga, Adam Driver, and Al Pacino in The House of Gucci. What was that like?
Insane. It was surreal. It was the last thing I was expecting. I had been wanting and trying to really get known more for screen. It's funny because when COVID came along, it forced the theatre to stop, obviously. But actually that had been something I've been planning for a little bit for a while. I've been talking to my agent saying, listen, now my kids are at school and at nursery, I don't know if I can do year-long contracts in the West End anymore, because I just never see them. Now there's Sunday shows as well. And I really had been wanting, just from a creative point of view as well, to move into screen more. So it's funny that it was scary, and when that happened, and it was forced upon me. But in a way, it helped, because it would have been hard to get out of that pattern and start saying no to things without that.
Yes.
So that kind of almost, really gave me that final nudge. But I wasn't really expecting much to happen, because it was lockdown and nothing was happening, right?
Yeah.
Then I finally got a call from my agent saying, "Hey, Ridley Scott wants to see you for this part." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Okay, I'm in." So yeah, it was the last thing I was expecting. It was insane. I had 6 weeks in Italy. I was in Milan, Rome, and Lake Como.
Oh.
I was there much more than I would have been because of quarantine. So my actual filming dates and wardrobe dates, the time I didn't have time to go home, quarantine, come back, quarantine for every single time. So I just stayed there for 6 weeks. I had to quarantine in a hotel room for the first 2 weeks, which was pretty intense. And it was just surreal. It was surreal just from being in beautiful parts of Italy where it was red zone lockdown. So nothing was going on apart from this film, which is incredible. It could continue. And yeah, just working with, Ridley Scott was amazing to watch work. He was amazing to work with, like such a master, so nice, so grounded, I didn't feel like I was treated any differently by him to any of the other actors, which I feel is really saying something. I felt like it was such a community vibe on set, and everyone was so respected. And yeah, honestly, like I didn't feel that it was a shame I didn't get to have much opportunity to chat to the actors outside of filming, because you put your mask on and off you go. Like it was so protected, to be able to keep running and filming at that time. But everyone was so lovely. And I do remember my first day on set. Obviously, I was bricking myself and excited at the same time. And this scene we were doing, one of these scenes I was in was Al Pacino's character's birthday party. And it was all meant to take place at this long table in this garden of this mansion in Lake Como with the mountains, in the backdrop and the lake in the backdrop. And that was how Ridley Scott had visioned it. And obviously, he's a very visual director, and he'd all been flown out there for this shot. And Al Pacino, he's in his 80s now, and he was finding it, understandably tricky because it was freezing and really windy, and it was just hard to focus on the scene with all that going on. So he spoke to Ridley Scott, and I was so impressed, because you just saw, I think a lot of directors could be really attached to their vision. We've all been flown out there. This is how the scene goes. And it could have, got a bit dramatic. But you just saw him have a think, have a chat. And then he came back and was like, right, everyone, just give yourselves half an hour break. We're going to move the scene inside. It's actually going to take place after the party instead of before. And then he was literally sitting there just doodling out a new, board for that scene. So we just changed it all around. It's incredible to watch him just adapt and just be so pragmatic. But actually that also really helped calm my nerves, because it gave us all time. It was me and the other actors in the scene. So it was me, Jared Leto, Al Pacino, Adam Driver, and Lady Gaga. And we were all standing in a circle running lines. And I was like, this is so cool, because it just feels so normal. I'm just running lines with a bunch of actors. And it just kind of really helped normalize that, okay, I know that to us, they're these amazing, legends of screen. But actually that really, really, after that moment, I was cool. I was like, right, yeah, this is cool. We're all just actors when it comes down to it. And we're all here to come together and create this scene. So really
and you touched on the kind of humanity of being a creative within the film industry. Their early starts, yes, you're in a place that could be beautiful, but it could be freezing cold, as you said. And you have to endure the elements. But it's great that, I've heard great things about Ridley as well. He obviously comes from, I think he used to do a lot of commercials before he became
did for years. Apparently his first film wasn't until he was 50 or something.
Yeah. And so he's just very good at problem solving.
Yes.
and being efficient with the time on set. So I mean, it must have been a joy to see that in action, as you say.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I mean, I was very lucky actually that, I hadn't done much script apart from, in fact, funnily enough, a lot of adverts, and the odd bit of TV. I hadn't done much at all, and certainly not for a long time on screen. So I was really thrown in the deep end. And one of the things, I wasn't nervous about my acting. I knew I had that down. I felt confident with that. I was most nervous about remembering the etiquette on scene and things like continuity and camera angles and all those little pieces.
Yep.
And it was actually perfect then that this was with Ridley Scott, because, he's known for doing everything in one take usually, or one or two takes, and having all the camera angles on at the same time, which essentially is like theatre. I just played the scene from beginning to end as if I was on stage. So that was actually really useful as well, because it's a much more theatrical way of doing things, right? And actually quite rare in the film industry.
Yeah. What was the impact like for you once that film came out? Like, how did you feel about that? And has your phone started to ring?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it came out really quickly. I think it was something crazy, like 8 months later, the film was released. It was insane. I think, on one level, it really gave me a lot of confidence that I could do it. I think for a while I was like, will I ever transition fully over? And just, I had some really lovely feedback and lovely conversations with Ridley Scott. And so, just having, it was just one of those moments where I think as an actor sometimes, or any kind of artist, you wonder occasionally, am I delusional? Am I like one of those people that goes on the X Factor that really thinks they've got something and they really don't, So I think being around people of that caliber, and especially like that director, and having that great feedback and just going through that, and it was really reassuring and reaffirming, and just a confidence boost, to be honest. So, and it gave me a taste of what I'd always really wanted. So I was like, oh my God, I want it even more. So I think in so many ways, just internally, it was really helpful and moved and shifted a lot for me. Definitely once the film came out, I mean, just having that credit definitely helped the phone ring more, and I started getting seen for different things. I'll be absolutely transparent with you. It wasn't the career changing, now I'm a star move that I hoped it might be. But at the end of the day, I'm still kind of a newbie when it comes to screen work, because I am known as a theatre actor more. So, but there couldn't have been a better job to get on my CV to start me off on the right track, right? So I think it's really helped me be seen for, I think had I not done that, even though I'd been leading lady a lot on the West End and originated parts and things like that in London, I still probably would have been going for police officer number 2, unnamed, really working my way up. And so I definitely am getting in the room for more interesting parts. And that's really exciting. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really positive way to look at it. I remember Halle Berry saying when she won the Oscar, everyone thought, she thought the phone wouldn't stop ringing, and the phone literally didn't ring at all.
Right.
And it's just, you sometimes creatives kind of focus on the reward, and really they just need to kind of focus on that moment. And it sounds like you really embraced that moment, really enjoyed that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all part of the journey, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that sounds like incredible. Just with regards to the role, Jenny Gucci, how did you prepare for that role? Like, did you research her? Just talk to us about that process.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was really lucky in that Jenny Gucci wrote a book about her experiences in the Gucci family. So that was very helpful. So I read that about twice and got a lot from that about who she was, how she thought, how she communicated with people, her relationship with her husband. So I was playing Jared Leto's wife. So my 1994 self was very excited about that. My so-called life was definitely a a good point in my week.
Great TV show.
Yeah, it's a great TV show. So that definitely helped. And I was looking at photos of her and just there are quite a few books actually on the Gucci family. Obviously, I centered on hers most, but I just did a lot of reading. She was an opera singer. She wasn't a professional opera singer. So I did sing some opera in the film as well. So obviously that was part of the preparation.
Yep.
They didn't tell me what I'd be singing until like a week before, by the way. I was like, can you send me the music, please? And I actually am singing live in it. So that's quite unheard of as well. But Ridley Scott wanted me to sing. Yeah. And actually it's funny because he got me to sing it again and again and again and again. And this is like that Queen of the Night song.
Yes.
So it's really hard and you're not really meant to sing it again and again. So after like take 5, I was like, I don't know if I can hit that note anymore. And I was so pissed off because when I went to the premiere and watched it for the first time with my partner, I was like, they put in the crap take where I can't hit the note. But it kind of makes sense now because later on Jared Leto's character is saying, she had to sing till her voice was raw and she's not meant to be a professional singer. So I kind of feel, knowing Ridley Scott, that nothing is done by mistake. So yeah, I've forgiven him now.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd have to let my singer ego go and be like, no, I'm acting a part.
But you touched on something really interesting there, because once the take's done, once you've done take, I don't know, 5 or 30, whatever, it's all down to the cutting room floor. And we as actors, unless we're part of the production team or the producer, we don't have any input in and I love that feeling actually when you do see yourself on screen and you see which one they've picked. It's quite an interesting, weird moment. Absolutely you're just happy you're in it, aren't you? So let's sidestep outside of the acting world that you're in. And let's talk about your coaching, because you're a prolific coach. Tell us about your coaching business.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as I said, it kind of it started unknowingly about 12 years ago or so when I was working through my stage fright, and I didn't know that would end up being part of my decision to move into coaching as well as acting. And so when the first lockdown happened and I realized, I mean, I was the main breadwinner as a West End actor, really, and I've got my 2 kids. And so I was bricking it a little bit, and we all had to adapt, didn't we? So I think it was that adapt or die thing. And I thought, okay, so what would I do? What can I do? What's pandemic proof? And what would excite me? And I'd actually been thinking for a while, it'd always been on my mind, coaching and having my own business and of, helping people in that way. I mean, I still remember when I was at primary school, little kids would come, it's a bit weird. Little kids would come up to me and they'd be like, this is the girl who helps you solve things. I'd be like the agony aunt. I don't know, at age 8. I mean, I don't know how that happened. It sounds like I was a really annoying little dickhead, but so I clearly always had that in me a little bit. So I decided to jump in. I certified at 2 different places online, and just to feel, like I really had the tools under my belt to be legit and really feel I was had that structure. And and I invested a lot in business coaches, I've got to say, group coaching courses, business mentors, because I think actually when it comes to entrepreneurship, I think if you've been in something like acting for a long time, you've got a head start in terms of the mindset required. Because I see people come into entrepreneurship from, say, corporate roles or the more standard 9 to 5, and they really struggle with just the unknown, and the trust and the rejection and investing in yourself and all those different pieces. So I think that really helped me, actually. And Yeah. So, I mean, I started learning more and more about, I'd been interested in entrepreneurship before because I think, from my stage fright, that got me really into mindset work. Then I started getting a bit woo woo and really looking into universal law and geeking out on manifestation. So I was always had that side of me that, of personal development that I was very interested in. And of course, because a lot of the authors of those kinds of books, a lot of them are not entrepreneurs. So that did start me geeking out on entrepreneurship and business. And even though I wasn't really doing anything with it. So once I started investing in actual business mentors, I had to learn quickly, and I tried things and I failed. I mean, I don't know when I started really making money from it. I think it was probably about 6 months in. And I'd invested a lot of money and wasn't getting any clients. I was like, oh my God. And then it started working. And actually the thing that really shifted it for me was the inner work. I stopped and I thought, there was this course I was doing where we were looking at money mindset. And then I was like, I'm good at this. I'm good at visioning. And I'm like, yes, I am wealthy. And yes, so, I love all that, right? I'm good at visioning and then the next module was money management. I was like, oh, look at your bank account. How do you actually manage the money you have now? Like the reality, which I was not so good at. So I had to kind of, really have a cold, hard look at my bank account and freaked out because I'd invested all this money. My partner knew I'd invested a lot, but didn't know how much. And I wasn't getting any clients yet. And I remember having a sit down with myself and thinking, it was one of those kind of crossroads moments. I was like, I can either just pack this in because this is getting crazy and go stack shelves or something, which a lot of my actor friends were doing during COVID, whatever you had to do, and just kind of really go into survival mode. Or I can just, I had to ask myself, am I really in with both feet? Am I showing up as much as I could? Am I being brave in every area? Am I really living the message I'm teaching? Am I, and the answer was no.
Right.
So that necessity point kind of was a catalyst for me. And about 2 weeks later, I had my first really high income week. And then it kind of just started building from there. And so now I started off coaching one-on-one, online, all online. And then about a year in, I started launching my group program. And so now most of my revenue on business is from group coaching, in a 6-month academy I have online. And essentially the main thing I focus on it's very linked to my acting. It's helping female online business owners, to get over their visibility fear so they can show up online and be the face of their personal brand, like step into the spotlight of their personal brand and really use that connection and visibility and clarity of messaging to bring clients in. Because I think that's that people buy from people, right? If you're not showing your face and getting your voice heard, which so many people are so terrified to do, then it's really hard to make your business work, especially if you're a personal brand.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I do a lot of a mentorship with people who suffer with presentations. And it's just remarkable just how many people are terrified to put their face out there. And it touches on some of the things that you mentioned before about just that worry of what if something bad happens. And it's great that you've made a business out of it, because there are so many people out there who need that support, who need that little bit of guidance. So that's brilliant. Just with regards to your processes, so as a coach, what is your process with the groups that you work with?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, when it comes to one-on-one, it's much more organic and kind of bespoke. But with the particular group that I'm kind of focused most on at the moment, the actual kind of tangible graduation piece we work towards is an online launch for your group program. So there's nothing that gets you quite as visible in the online business space as launching something, right? Where you have to really show up every day. So I realized for a while I didn't have that piece at the end. And I realized everyone was doing the process, but going towards a different like result, and it felt a little bit messy for a group program. So that's when we brought that piece in. But essentially there's kind of 3 pillars to it. So I've kind of coined it the impact accelerator method, because I'm most excited to work with women who really have impact at the center of their business. They really want to make a difference with their business, a positive impact on the world in some way. So that first piece really is the inner work, I'd call it. So magnetic self. Wow. So that's kind of broken down in something called the diva process. So it's desire and destination, getting really clear on what is that North Star. Because I think so many people have their ladder up against the wrong wall, and they grit and they grind and they hustle, and then they get to the top of the ladder and they're like, shit, this was my mum's dream. This isn't actually what I wanted, So it's like, it just basically coming back down to like, hang on, let's dig up that box of like, what's that secret whisper desire that what would you really want to do? Like, if you actually believed it might be possible, like, let's start there. Yeah. What is the actual business? And then I is insight. So that's really looking, I'm an NLP master as well. So I bring NLP into it. Right. Because I think a lot of people need that deeper tool. So that's essentially looking at what are the stories and narratives that are keeping us stuck in the same patterns, and how can we rip those up and replace them with, more empowering beliefs and narratives about what's possible for us. V is vibration, which is where we're getting a bit woo-woo about really stepping into that and embodying that now, rather than waiting until we have the money or waiting until something happens before we step into that identity. And A is action. Like I think when it comes to things like mindset, or especially manifestation work, like it can get a bad name, and a lot of people misunderstand it and think, oh, if I just sit on a mountaintop and meditate, like the money will fall into my lap, and which is so we need to take action. So that's kind of that's where I bring in a lot of the performance psychology I learned. So what are those hacks to actually, stop waiting until the fear's gone and actually take action? So that's kind of the first piece. And then it moves into, letting all of that inform your brand. So having a brand that's an extension of you, having messaging that articulates that, so that it reaches your ideal client, and getting visible in a way that works for your time capacity, the areas where you naturally shine. And then it moves into the launching piece.
Wow. It sounds like you really had to hone that process in. What does it feel like, from your perspective, once you're, I don't know if you call them students, but the mentees that come in, when they get to the end of that course, how does that make you feel?
Oh, so good. And I feel like, if I'm honest, I look back at the first version of this program and I kind of want to give everyone a refund, because they all had an amazing time and it was great for where it was then. But this is just another example of like, just start before you're ready and stop waiting to be perfect to begin with. I think, what's that quote? Like, don't wait till you're great to start, and then you become great. I said that in a crap way, but you get the idea. So it's really evolved over time, and it has, and I've seen what works and what doesn't work. And I really feel that in this last year, it's really working, and people are really, really loving it. And I'm just getting great feedback, and nothing means more, and actually about a third of my clients in that program now decide to carry on into, it's called an alumni retainer, where they can just keep going month by month and cancel whenever they like. But it's really lovely. And one thing I love about it as well is just the community aspect, just the relationships you see forming amongst people. And I think the online world can be a lonely space, Yeah. So just having created a community where people can come together and support each other, let alone the curriculum or method they're going through, is really, really warms my heart. Yeah.
Amazing. And I guess that also ties into actually running your own business as well, because that is like the most punk rock thing anyone can do is, create something that's part of you, that belongs to you, that gives to people. Whether it's a restaurant or, whether you're a coach or whatever it is. Yeah. So it sounds like it's super fulfilling.
It's so fulfilling. And I found it really helps me on my acting journey too, just to be patient and play the long game and say no to things that don't feel right. Because I think for me, I'm not saying this is right for everyone, but for me, when acting was my only thing, I got to a point where you feel a little, I feel like in the acting industry, you can feel a little bit like a kid waiting by the phone. It's hard to like, there's lots of things you can control. And I think a lot of that is about taking responsibility for, being prepared when the opportunities come. So what can you control and all of that? But, it can feel quite passive. And I think for someone like me, I've got a really strong work ethic and I like, I've got that ambitious soul. So it feels very empowering to have something else and not feel financially dependent on the acting alone, so that I can basically wait for the stuff that feels right rather than just be like, a bit desperate and just grabbing every acting job that comes my way.
Yeah. So you touched on being a mother.
Yeah.
How do you balance being a mother with your coaching business and acting?
Yeah, not very successfully, no. I think one of the things I've learned is to really just try and get rid of guilt. I think as a mother, you feel guilty whatever you do. You feel a bit damned if you do, damned if you don't. So I think for me, I've certainly noticed that the kids love being involved, especially in the acting. So, when I was in shows, like Mabel, my daughter, would come along and she'd join in warm up sometimes if they'd let her come and visit in the dressing room. And I used to feel really guilty a lot of the time when I missed bedtimes, when I was doing West End shows. But her memories are so positive, that like this magic, meeting all these amazing actors and, being really kind of lauded over as this cute little thing. So, I think involving them in my work is important. And then at the same time, I think for myself, having boundaries. So what I found at the beginning of my online business was it was easy to kind of half be working and half with the kids all the time, which meant I wasn't really getting, for example, if I happen to have the kids that afternoon, but I'm kind of trying to just answer some emails too. And I'm always going, well, hang on, let me just do this and hang on. And therefore my gorgeous, beautiful kids who I adore so much, kind of in my mind in that moment become like they're in the way of my agenda, which is awful because I'm not going to get any good work done. I'm not going to move the needle forward in my business, and I'm not spending quality time with the people I love most. So I think for me as well, it was boundaries. Like once I just decided, right, just really discipline of this time, wherever I'm at in my work, the laptop closes, notifications off, and I'm just going to be present. And I think as well, I found that if there's a lot going on in my work life, better to be fully present for 1 hour of really great playtime than half present for 3, so that's really helped me.
It also will impact how good your work would be as well. If your mind is in two places, you're never going to be efficient with your output, and both sides of the coin. So it's really important.
Absolutely.
To that. I run my own business, and it's really important to know when to switch off. And as you say, spend time with your loved ones, like quality time, because it's really, really good for lots of things, including your mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we become really boring to listen to as well if we don't have any kind of life outside of our business. It's hard to create content and create something when we're not really living. So I think it really, like you say, I think it is only good for the business to learn how to, that whole kind of work smarter, not harder thing. Like, how can I actually work a bit less, but be really efficient in that time so I can actually be a human and have a life as well. Yeah.
So let's talk about your mental health. So how do you protect your mental health?
Yeah, I think, I'll say that it's in the last probably 18 months in my business that I've really learned to, as I said, work smarter and not harder. I think at the beginning I was hustling a bit too much. I think sometimes you need a bit of hustle in your back pocket for, there's going to be things that happen, but you can't live there. And so that's something I've definitely been learning. And I think it's different for everyone. But for me, I'm certainly someone who, I love being with people. I love chatting. Most people probably think I'm an extrovert, but really I'm quite introverted, as in I need my hermit time.
Yep.
So I think it's just knowing and accepting who you are, because not everyone will need that. But for me, I need alone time. So, I couldn't do this when I was working in theatre, but I'll get up before the kids most days now when I can, and I do that kind of traditional morning routine thing. So I'll meditate a bit. I mean, journaling for me is massive. I've journaled since I was 10.
Right.
So I won't tell you how many years that is, otherwise it gives away my age. But, yeah, just just like just writing out my thoughts, having somewhere to put them, close the book, and they're in there, you know. So yeah, and I think little things like forcing myself to have a lunch break, you know, like, because when you're working for yourself, you can just keep going, can't you? And it's
Yep.
hard again to have that boundary. So really telling myself, right, I'm going to again close the laptop, like maybe go for a walk. Luckily I've got these beautiful woods near me, maybe go for a little walk in the woods, or cook myself a proper meal. Just I think it requires, for me, it requires discipline, because part of me could just work 24/7 because I love what I do.
Mm.
So I think it's time, it's boundarying off, understanding that I need time alone and gifting myself that, and time with friends as well. So I mean, I'm being a bit, I shouldn't say I'm being a bit naughty, but I'm going to Ibiza with a girlfriend in like 2 weeks without my kids, and I'm so excited. my daughter's hating me for it, but you know, things like that again, like, yeah, the guilt comes in, but I'm like, do you know what, I'll be a better mother when I come back, and a better coach when I come back. So I think again, it's, yeah, giving yourself permission to have that balance, and acknowledging what it is you need individually. It's going to be different for everyone, and finding little ways to give yourself that through the week.
Yeah, but like restoration is so powerful because it really galvanizes you.
Yeah.
You know, when you're running on burnout, you can't deliver. You just can't.
Yeah.
On all aspects of your life, whether it's business or whether it's something personal.
Absolutely.
And just like you, I mean, there's a lot of people who assume that I'm an extrovert, but actually, like you, I love to have my moment. And like you as well, it's in the morning, and it's so important to give that time for yourself.
Yeah.
Because you'll just be 100% for the rest of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes such a difference. And I think, I know that, you know, if I don't do that, it's the kids jumping on me, waking me up, and then I'm kind of I'm on my back foot. I'm in reaction mode for the rest of the day, and it's really hard to get out of that. So I think, yeah, finding what works for you and gifting it to yourself. And like you said, in terms of that kind of replenishment time, it's part of the productivity cycle. You know, I think, you know, in our society, we think we need to be producing and active and doing all the time. But like you say, it doesn't produce good work, and it just burns you out and gets you ill. Like, that rest time is when the great ideas pop in. And yeah, so it's so important to really try and cultivate that.
Yeah, and there's two extra aspects to that restorative period, and one of them is, you know, processing, you know, how you process what's just happened or what's going on. But the other side is also reflecting as well, like reflecting on what you've done and what you're about to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, I think it's so easy to just kind of create a bit of a default path for yourself, because you're just reacting. I mean, there's so many things coming in, especially these days with mobile phones and internet. Like, I feel like we're kind of living in two different realities, the tangible one and the virtual one. And so we're just getting pings and notifications and information left, right, and center. So if you don't have that time to just quieten down and hear that kind of little whisper in your own voice and your own intuition, it is hard to navigate in a really intentional way. So yeah, absolutely.
Florence, I feel like you and I could just be talking for hours. Like, honestly, like, this time is just plowed through, and I've still got like a load of list of questions, but we are running out of time. So I've got a couple more questions for you, which I always ask my guests. First one, what advice would you give to yourself if you've met yourself just as you were coming into this industry that you're working in now?
Yeah, I'd say be willing to be crap, and that's the way forward. Like, you know, yeah, as in start before you're ready and risk not being your best first time. I think I could have, you know, stepped into opportunities years earlier if I wasn't so scared of not being perfect first time. So I think that whole growth mindset of be willing to make a fool out of yourself, and be willing to start before you feel like you're ready, because you never will be ready, and be willing to be imperfect, because it's moving through that. And it's writing that crappy first draft, and it's, you know, trying that joke that flops, that's where the growth happens, and that's where the gems are found. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm sure loads of people listening will get a lot of value from that. And then the last question, and I'm sure there's people who want to get in contact with you. What's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. I'm just Florence Andrews. So unfortunately, I was hacked at Facebook and Instagram about 18 months ago. So I've had to start everything again. So I am more popular than I look on there. So unfortunately, my acting Instagram went and I could never get it back. So I actually still need to start a new one. So at the moment, the only place you can find me online really that isn't my personal Facebook profile is my coaching Instagram. But come find me there anyway, even if you're interested in me as in my acting, because I do put some acting things on there too. And I will at some point start my acting Instagram up again. So that is Florence_Andrews_coaching on Instagram. You can find me there.
Cool. And you're not the only one that's been hacked. I was hacked actually over COVID.
So annoying, isn't it?
And it's devastating. Like you lose everything and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're like,
I know, the bastards. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it's good to have you on the show. It's really good to speak to you. I've got so much value from this. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure everyone listening really enjoyed it too. It's what a fantastic life.
Oh, fab. Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel super blessed and excited to see what's coming next. And it's been total joy speaking to you. So thank you for having me on.
No worries. Those of you listening, make sure if you're sharing to use the hashtag Sanj Surati Talks, all one word. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, please be good.